Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. We are doing a Transylvanian accent today. Now, we're doing the skirt for my black silk gown. Black. It'll read black, okay? Under the stage lighting, it'll read black. So, we're not gonna spend much time on all the introductions today because, it's just kind of like a more complicated version of the petticoat. It's just like instead of just a single layer that we're serging together, it's going to be so yeah, instead of just a simple single layer cotton that we're serging together and putting a waistband on, it's going to be made out of silk. It's going to be flat lined with cotton. There's going to be a placket. There's going to be pockets. The waistband is going to be basically the same, other than I might hand fill it down. And instead of doing a bias binding or a just serging the bottom, serging the hem, we're going to be using some wool braid, which is kind of not entirely historically accurate. It's more historically accurate for the Victorian era than the Edwardian era, but I want to make sure this dress gets a lot of wear. So we're going to be doing a wool braid. So yeah, we're using a black or dark midnight blue silk taffeta from from Silk Baron. I just bought some wool from Mood that came today, which is fun. And we're going to be lining it with a black cotton broadcloth I use for literally everything. If you buy a black Dan or Dave, which is coming up, from House of Dimmer, made out of cotton, it's this broadcloth. This is the broadcloth I use for this is the broadcloth I use for those shirts, unless I am on a deadline and can't wait for it to come in the mail, because I get this from I use this for the back of vest that I made. I just love this cloth. We're going to be using this for flat lining. Yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great, okay? It's gonna be great. Hey, it's gonna be great. Let's get to it. I should say that I'm kind of antsy to get this going, because it's been literally a week since I've been able to work in my office. I think on... Oh, sorry, it's been literally a week since I've been able to get into my office. I think on Saturday, I was able to get in because there were other people here, so the front door was unlocked, and then I know the code for the box where he keeps all the keys, so I was able to use that to get in and just make sure everything was turned off, grab some things that I needed. But this is the first day that I've been able to get in to my office to actually work. So yeah, last week, but it's fine. It's fine. Listen, hey. It's fine. It's fine. Let's get to work. Okay, welcome to my red tape. Ooh, not the camera leg. Okay, welcome to my red desk. Let's start with picking at this Mod Podge. Start with some unboxing, shall we? This is the package from Silk Baron. Oh, she's beautiful. She's reading purple on screen. Interesting. She's wearing purple, but she's like a metallic midnight blue, that, especially if I do a blue wash, on stage, it's gonna read delicious black. And then this is not immediately important, but let's open it while we're here. Chalk dust flying everywhere. This is the wool braid. Let's just focus on me. Focus on me, damn it. Focus on me, damn it. Hello. There we go. It's just like wool, like twill tape, basically. And then this will get folded in half over the hem to bind it off. Ooh, my battery's gonna die. So let's get this silk laid out so that we can get the skirt cut out. Okay, so the first step is, of course, since we already drafted out the pattern last time, we can just go straight into cutting it out. So this is the back piece, and I'm cutting it out doubled up on this silk, not on the fold, but just doubled up on 2 layers of the silk. And I'm just weighing the pattern piece down with these little washers. And then unlike with how I did the mock-up and how I do a lot of my projects actually, instead of just tracing out the net pattern and then adding in some rough seam allowance, you can see I'm taking this little blue ruler and I'm adding in 1/2 inch of seam allowance. So here I'm just double checking that the that center back edge is 1/2 inch from the selvage, and then on the other side, all along the top, adding 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then I'm not adding any seam allowance along the bottom, along the hem, because I'm not going to be really needing any seam allowance with how we're doing the binding, because it's a braid. It doesn't need to be turned under, so we're just encasing it. So I've cut the gores out of the silk and the cotton broadcloth interlining, and I've paired them up with their corresponding pieces. So I've got all the front pieces together, all the side pieces together, all the back pieces together. I still need to cut out the waistband. I'm going to cut out, actually I think I'm going to do, I'm going to cut out a 3-inch strip by 38 and have 1 inch of overlap. That'll be out of the silk, and that'll get folded in half with 1/2 inch seam allowance, to be a 1-inch strip instead of having the 2 pieces that I sew together like I did with the petticoats. And then I'm also going to cut out a 1-inch strip by 37, so it'll just be the net waistband out of the cotton broadcloth, and I'll use that as like interfacing, just to give it a bit more structure. Okay, so in addition to the obviously the big skirt panels, the big gores, I also had a couple other things that I needed to trace out of the silk. So here I am doing the facings for the pockets, because yes, this is going to have big, enormous pockets. And just instead of having the entire pocket made out of silk, I'm just tracing off a little bit of a facing, just in case the pocket gap gapes open a little bit and you can see into the pocket. You'll see some of this silk instead of seeing the black cotton pocketing. So I'm just tracing this out, and then down below I'm tracing out another facing for the other pocket, and I'm doing this on the fold, so these will be great. Here I'm cutting out the placket. Here I'm pressing up the bottom edge of the pocket facings 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to fell that down to the pocketing before I stitch it all together, just to finish off that edge. And then you can see I'm using my hands as a clapper because I don't own one. I actually went to Joanns to buy a clapper after doing a lot of these clapping with my hands, but they didn't have one, so I still don't have one, and I'm just going to try not to burn my hands. So here I am, like I said, just taking that pocket facing, and I'm pinning it down, and then I'm going to fell it down to the pocketing, and then the other edges will get finished when we sew the pocket together. Okay, this is entirely historically accurate, I swear. Other than the fact that my office is too shallow for me to get the camera far back enough away that you can see both my face and that I'm sitting tailor style. But I figured visual gag was more important than seeing my face. Yeah, this is entirely historically accurate to just sit crisscross on your table. Like I mentioned, it's called sitting tailor style. It comes from the fact that back in the day, tailors would sit. Tailors and seamstresses who worked in tailor shops, they would sit cross-legged on the cutting table when they were doing hand sewing, and I think they would also do it when they're cutting things out. Can't exactly remember why they would do this. I think it had something to do with posture, or that the you got better light when you were sitting on the table than when you were sitting on a stool at the table. I don't know, man. Probably more the former ones, like better on your back, I guess. So I am flatlining the skirt pieces together, which means I am taking, I cut each panel of the skirt, the 5 gores. I cut it out of the silk, and I cut it out of this black cotton broadcloth. And each piece is getting basted down the sides to its matching piece in the other fabric. And this creates a, and then they get sewn together as like one Franken piece of fabric. And this gives you like a better connection between the two pieces versus if you were to bag line something, which is how we tend to line things nowadays. And bag lining has its uses. It's super easy to do on machine, minimizes the amount of hand sewing that you have to do. That's the one where you sew the lining and the fabric, or the fashion fabric, as 2 separate shells, and then you stitch them right sides together along the outside, but you leave a gap in the seam long enough or big enough that you can turn it right side out, and then press and just like slip stitch or hem stitch that hole closed by hand, or you can top stitch it if you're lazy. I guess you could like leave like the bottom hem sewn, and then like do like a bias tape or a binding type of thing. You know, many ways to finish off your garment. That one, and then that one also encases all of your raw seams, so you don't need to do any seam finishing. And that wasn't uncommon. It's more common nowadays because we do it with basically everything that we put lining into. Full lining, a lot of blouses will have like like a half lining. Some dresses have half linings these days. Just up at the top, a lot of like men's button-ups and dress shirts will have not necessarily like a half lining or like a facing. I feel like the difference between a half lining and a facing is that a half lining. I guess you could argue that it's like the size of the panel, versus like facings are usually only like a couple inches if you're thinking about it like that. But I would also say that like facings get stitched down, and half linings I would consider those to not be stitched down. I don't know, I could be wrong. And lining things like that wasn't uncommon, whether it was bag lining as we do it now, or still creating the separate shells, and then you would insert the lining. You would fold under all of your seam allowance, and then you would insert the lining, and you would fell the entire thing down by hand, which takes a lot longer, but it does offer some more control and flexibility over setting the lining in. And then there's flat lining, where because the two pieces of fabric are connected more directly at like basically every seam that a panel is involved in, it is connected to its lining piece. It has a better body. It's not as loose and flowy, the lining, and then also you can do it so that to add more body and weight to your fashion fabric, like a stiffer hand. So like this silk taffeta, because it's taffeta, it's not like super drapey. But if I was using something that was super drapey, like I don't know, silk organza or something, I could flatline it with something a bit heavier, like cotton broadcloth, or silk taffeta. Silk velvet. Silk velvet's pretty drapey, and you'll see those get flatlined a lot. Modern silk velvets, you'll see those get flatlined. Historical silk velvets were a bit stiffer. They like take on. They have this like Franken way of, it kind of takes on the weight of the interlining fabric, of the flatlining fabric. But these are already similar weight. If anything, I would say the silk is probably has a heavier hand. But from what I can tell, this is how skirts were constructed, and I feel it sounds backwards, right? Because it's like, oh, I have to add this extra step of basting all of these together, but then I also lose like the entire process of making up a separate lining and attaching that, right? Like even if, because I have the waistband and I'm doing the hem braid, I wouldn't need to like bag line it, right? I could just machine stitch the waistband onto the silk, hand fell it down onto the cotton, and then bind it off with the wool braid. And it'd be fine. But I feel like just, I don't know. I might be completely off here. This might be taking longer. This might be, they might have like the exact same time length. If I spend all this time basting and then sewing the skirt up as one shell versus sewing the two shells separately. I don't know. This feels like it's gonna be faster to me. Even though like if it also kind of feels like, oh, I spent already like a week on, not like a full week. I haven't come in every day. And it's not like I'm here 8 hours a day, right? I'm here a couple hours, a couple times a week just because I have school and all that. But it's like, I'm like this far into the project and I haven't started assembling the actual skirt panels yet. It's like, okay, well, you know, but I'm still working on the skirt. There's other stuff that needs to get done. Like the other half of this flat lining. But this is the second last panel. This is the front panel, and I have three over there, the two back panels and the other side panel, which I can show you here in a second. So one of the back panels, were giving me some shit. So at first I was like, okay, this does take a while. Like I could check on this recording and be like, how long is this? Looks like 12, 13 minutes. I can't really read it. I think it's about to take over a second. It isn't that bad. But I was like, it just hit 13 minutes on the recording. So, you know, that's not that bad for one side. Half an hour per piece, that's fine. But I was like, I kind of was like, oh, can I like take a shortcut here? And I was like, what if I machine basted them? And just made sure I did it in the seam allowance so that it doesn't show. This silk doesn't, it self heals pretty well. Like I just had all those silk pins in here and I cannot tell where they were. But I was like, oh, I'll just like, I'll try machine basting it, and I'll show you here in a second. It does not look good. No. There's just so much ease. It does not look good. Maybe it's a tensioning issue. I don't care. I don't really want to figure that out right now. We're just gonna hand baste it down. Like it looks so much better. You'll see in a second. But then I did the other one. I did the other back piece, and then I did one of the side pieces, and then realized that I need to be sure that I'm mirroring these pieces. So I went and looked, and I had created two right-hand side back pieces. So if I were to sew them together, I'd either need to reverse one of the back pieces so that what would have been the back seam side is now the back side seam side, which would not hang properly, or one of them was going to have the lining layer showing to the outside, which would look terrible. So I had to unpick that and rebaste it with the, like I essentially basted it right sides together, and you want them wrong sides together. Okay. Whatever. Let me show you this lining here. I'm not gonna cut. Maybe I'll cut it in post. So this over here is the one that machine basted on. As you can see, so much ease. Oh my god, it does not look fine. And then over here, this is, I think this one, this is the side panel, but this is the back panel on the bottom, and you can see, nice and flat. That's what we want. Okay, now that all of the gore pieces are flat lined together, we can finally get them stitched together. I believe I'm starting with the center back seam. because I have some things that I need to do. I'm ending this stitching about 8 inches down from the waistband, and then it goes down from there to the hem, and so there's a 8-inch slit up at the top for closures and placket. That 8-inch slit gives you about 16 inches of wiggle room, which is enough to fit over the top of my head or over my hips, although usually in history they went over your head. Okay, so a couple things have happened since the last time we saw each other, because the camera was charging or the camera was at home, and I just need to get stuff done. So I think the last thing you saw was the back seam getting done. We now also have, I felled the facing, or not like the pseudo facing, I felled the seam allowance down on this side, and then on this side I attached placket that you saw me make up, so that I machine stitched it to the right side, and then on the wrong side I just felled down that ½ inch that I folded in, pressed back, and fell down to the cotton. That's felled onto the lining here, and then I wish I'd done this before I fell down the before I did anything up here. Really, I pinked the seam allowance. You can't really see that. Prevent it from fraying. So that's what happened on the back. I also, you can't see that. I got the front seams done. So the side panels go to the front panel, and 11 inches down from this top line here. So I guess that'd be like 10.5 inches down from my waist. Where is it here? Have a slit for the pocket. Speaking of the pocket, I should pink those seams. Each of the pockets has a tape attached now. So those will get stitched to the side seams, and then the tape will get captured in the waistband, so that the weight of whatever's in the pocket gets transferred up to the waistband. Yeah, so let's deal with those pockets, shall we? Oh, this is a terrible shot. Okay, so here I'm just pinning the pockets into the slits that I left in the side front seams. I left these about 11 inches down. I would put these about 10 inches or 9 inches down, having now completed the skirt and seen where they actually fall in relation to my hands. They sit about at the level of my hands, but I feel like you actually want them a bit above your hands, for ease of motion, you know what I mean? You may see I'm doing 2 rows of pins here, the ones that are perpendicular and then the ones that are parallel. That second line is actually to hold everything else out of the way so that I don't accidentally sew this close, because I may or may not have done that. I'm just pressing some seams here, and I'm using these final seams are the side panels to the back panels, and because this is now a cylindrical object, I don't want to accidentally press something on the other side, so I'm just putting my seam roll inside so that I can press onto that and not onto the seam on the other side. Not the panel on the other side. So I've pinned the waistband on. Oh, I think I did the back seams, the back side seams, and I didn't get it on camera because I forgot. But now I have, and then I did, remembering everything that I haven't done on camera. I also put in a ½ inch pleat on each side of the center back. So it takes out 1 inch overall on each side, or 2 inches overall, which brings the waist down to 36 inches. Dope, right? So now it's time to sew this. That's how you sew. Okay, so this clip is me trying to pin this stupid wool braid onto the hem. Okay, so wool braid does not have to be stupid. Okay, this was a learning process and I hated most of it because I had a lot of failure in the beginning. So like I was trying to initially pin it with it just folded over the edge instead of pinning one side, sewing it, pinning to the other, sewing that, or after I was having some failure pinning both sides at once because like I was not able to like hold the skirt panels, both the silk and the cotton, and fold over the braid and pin. So I was like, okay, I'll just like pin because I kept like missing something. So I was like, okay, I'll pin it one side and then I'll go back through, fold it under, pin it like that, and then sew it. Sewing this already folded over, I do not understand how people do this. Quilters, I know you can do this. I do not understand this witchcraft. How are you doing this? I do not understand it. I missed like the skirt came away from the braid so many times and I was just stitching the braid to itself, or I missed one of the layers. I was so pissed. I had to seam rip so much of this goddamn braid and I ended up doing like over half of it the way you should do it, which is how you do like bias tape hem, okay? Sew it to one side, fold it under, sew it the other side, okay? And this is like, I'm just doing this all by machine. Okay, I'm not even hand sewing this. Honestly, hand sewing it might have been easier with the double fold, like already folded under, because you have better like dexterity or something. But like I was doing this by machine and with like a wide stitch, not like the super wide, not like a basting length, but like wider than I do, because the idea of this braid is that it's not supposed to be permanent. It's supposed to be like, it's supposed to like protect your skirt from abrasion. And they actually didn't do this as much in the Edwardian period. Using this wool braid was more of a Victorian era. By the Edwardian period, they were doing this out of like silk. But no, we went with wool. So this wool braid, the idea is that if you like drags and gets the abrasion and all dirty stuff from like the floor, you can rip the braid off and replace it, which is a lot easier than you can replace panels of your skirt, which means you have to like make a whole new skirt, basically, right? Because you have to like rip off the waistband, and you have to rip the seam apart, and it's just like so this braid, and then there would also be like a dust ruffle that you could do. I didn't do one, but that's just like another layer that is tacked into the lining, especially if you have a train. That's kind of why I didn't do this one, because it doesn't really have a train, and that would like sit between the permanent parts of the skirt and the floor, so it would get dirty and you could rip that out and you could replace it. But yeah, you should here's my tips. Based along the hem, because I didn't do that, I only based it along the vertical seams, and then pin it to one side, fold it under, pin to one side, sew it, fold it under, sew it. Okay, don't unless you have like you've been quilting for thousands of years and you can do that one go thing, don't try it. I don't recommend it. So yeah, some other things I don't think I mentioned during any of the clips is that I did the waistband. That one I did stitch on by machine onto the right side, and then I flipped it in and hand felled it down. And I made sure to catch some tapes that I installed in the pockets. I just used some tailor's tape, and those got caught in the pockets, in the top edge, and those will, if anything is in the pockets, the weight will be suspended off those tapes, and then those will get transferred to the waistband and onto the corset instead of just weighing down the side seam. And I think that